There comes a moment when you must separate yourself from the noise of the world and recognize that God does not move through chaos and distraction, but through a heart that is focused and open. Right now, this is that moment for you. It is not ikratkoi or coincidence that you are here, listening, pausing, and giving attention to something deeper than your daily routine. This is an invitation into a divine encounter, and it begins with a decision to quiet everything around you and within you. Shut the door, not just physically, but mentally. Turn away from every competing voice, every worry, every thought that tries to pull you in a different direction, and fix your attention on the presence of God. Because when you do that, you create an atmosphere where faith can rise. You must understand that God is not distant. He is not waiting for you to reach a certain level of perfection before He comes near. He is already near, already present, already ready to respond. The only thing He is looking for is your faith, your willingness to believe that He is right there with you. Many people miss this because they are looking for a feeling, a sign, or some dramatic experience. But God moves where there is belief, not where there is emotion. So even if your room feels ordinary, even if nothing around you seems to change, you must make a decision inside yourself. God is here. That decision, that simple act of faith, is what opens the door for the supernatural to enter your natural environment. As you sit there, begin to recognize that this is not just another moment. This is sacred time. Heaven responds when someone becomes aware of God's presence and honors it. You don't have to shout. You don't have to strive. You don't have to perform. You simply need to acknowledge Him. Say within yourself, "I know you are here." Let that truth settle in your heart. Let it become more real to you than what you see or feel around you. Because once you become conscious of His presence, everything begins to shift, even if it is not immediately visible. Your room is no longer just a room. It becomes a place of encounter. Your quietness becomes a signal of expectation. Your stillness becomes a platform for God to move, and as you continue to focus, you will notice something begin to change within you. Thoughts that were racing will start to slow down. Pressure that was building will begin to lift. There will be a sense deep inside that you are not alone. This is how faith operates. It recognizes before it feels, it believes before it sees, and it receives before there is any outward evidence. You don't have to feel anything for this moment to be real. Because the foundation of everything you are stepping into is faith, not emotion. So many people are waiting for a sign, a sensation, or some kind of outward confirmation before they allow themselves to believe that God is present. But that is not how the spiritual realm operates. Feelings are unstable. They rise and fall. They shift with circumstances. But faith remains steady because it is rooted in what God has already said. Right now, you must make a decision to believe beyond what your senses are telling you. Even if your body feels tired, even if your mind feels distracted, even if your environment feels unchanged, you choose to say, "God is here with me." And that declaration carries more power than any emotion you could experience. When you begin to understand this, you stop chasing feelings and you start standing on truth. You realize that God responds to your belief, not your mood, and the moment you align your words with that belief, something begins to move in the unseen realm. There is a shift that takes place when a person dares to trust God without requiring physical evidence. That kind of faith creates access. It opens the door for the supernatural to step into what looks like an ordinary situation. Your room may look the same, the air may feel the same, but something has changed because you have chosen to believe. This is why your words matter so much. Words are not just sounds, they are expressions of faith. When you speak in agreement with God, you are releasing something that carries authority. Many people speak based on how they feel, and in doing so, they reinforce doubt, fear, and limitation. But when you begin to speak based on what you believe, even when it contradicts your feelings, you step into a higher level of living. You are no longer led by what is temporary, you are led by what is eternal. So as you sit there, don't let silence turn into uncertainty. Let it become a place where you intentionally agree with God. Say it quietly if you need to, but say it with conviction. I believe you are here. Let those words settle deep within you. Repeat them until they become stronger than any opposing thought, because the more you declare it, the more your heart aligns with it, and the more aware you become of His presence. This is not about convincing God to come. It is about awakening yourself to the reality that He is already there. Faith does not bring God closer. Faith makes you conscious of how close He has always been. As you continue in this posture, you will begin to notice a difference, not necessarily in a dramatic or emotional way, but in a quiet assurance that rises within you. There is a confidence that begins to grow, a knowing that does not depend on what you see or feel. That is the evidence of faith working inside you. It is steady, it is calm, and it is powerful. And once that knowing takes root, it begins to influence everything else. Your thoughts, your words, your expectations shaping your entire perspective into one that is aligned with the reality of God's presence. God responds to words that are filled with faith, not empty repetition or routine speech, but words that rise from a heart that truly believes. This is where many people miss their moment, because they speak casually, without intention, without expectation, and without understanding the power that their words carry. But when you begin to speak with faith, something changes. Your words become more than sound. They become a release of spiritual authority. Right now, in this moment, heaven is attentive, listening for agreement, listening for that voice that dares to say what God has already declared. And when that voice rises, there is a response that begins immediately, even if it cannot be seen with natural eyes. You must realize that speaking is not just a natural act, it is a spiritual action. Every word you say either aligns you with faith or pulls you into doubt. There is no neutral ground. This is why it is so important to become intentional about what you declare. Instead of speaking based on fear, uncertainty, or what seems to be happening around you, you begin to speak based on what you believe about God. You say what aligns with His presence, His power, and His willingness to move in your life. As you do this, you are not trying to convince God to act. You are positioning yourself to receive what He has already made available. Right where you are, your voice matters. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to use perfect words, but you do need to speak with conviction. When you say, I believe you are here, it is not just a statement, it is an act of agreement with heaven. It is you stepping into alignment with truth, and that alignment creates a flow. It opens a channel where the supernatural begins to influence your natural environment. This is why silence alone is not enough. Silence must be filled with faith, and faith must be expressed. When you release words that are rooted in belief, you are activating something that goes beyond what you can understand. As you continue to speak, even softly, even simply, there is a building process that takes place. Faith begins to grow stronger, more stable, more dominant than any opposing thought. Doubt may try to interrupt. Distractions may try to pull your focus away, but you stay consistent. You keep declaring, you keep agreeing, you keep aligning your words with what you know to be true. And as you do, the atmosphere around you begins to respond, not in a way that always draws attention, but in a way that creates a deeper awareness, a stronger sense that something is happening. You are not speaking into emptiness. You are speaking into a realm that responds. Every word of faith is like a seed being planted, and those seeds do not remain inactive. They begin to produce, to grow, to bring forth results in ways that you may not immediately see, but that are already in motion. This is why consistency matters. This is why you don't stop after one moment. You continue, knowing that your words are not wasted, knowing that your voice carries weight, knowing that heaven responds to faith. Build declarations that come from a heart fully convinced now that you have spoken, now that you have aligned your words with faith. There comes a moment where you must become still, not as someone waiting in uncertainty, but as someone who knows that something has already been set in motion. This stillness is not empty. It is full of expectation. It is the quiet confidence that God has heard, that He has responded, and that He is already at work. Many people speak, but then they immediately fall back into doubt because they do not see instant results, and in doing so, they interrupt the very thing they started. But you must do the opposite. You must learn to remain steady after you have declared your faith. This is where trust becomes real. Anyone can speak when it feels easy, but staying in a place of calm assurance after you have spoken requires a deeper level of belief. It means you are no longer depending on your senses to confirm what is happening. You are relying on what you know to be true about God. As you sit there, resist the urge to check for signs. Resist the need to feel something dramatic. Resist the temptation to question whether anything is happening at all. Instead, settle into a position of quiet confidence. Say within yourself, "It is done. God has heard me. God is moving." In this stillness, something begins to take root inside you. It is not loud, it is not forced, but it is powerful. A deep sense of peace starts to rise, not because your circumstances have visibly changed, but because your perspective has shifted. You are no longer looking outward for confirmation. You are anchored inward in faith. This is where real strength is formed. This is where your spirit becomes stable, unmoved by what is happening around you. And as that stability grows, it begins to influence your thoughts. Worry loses its grip. Fear begins to fade. Questions lose their urgency because you are no longer searching for answers. You are resting in trust. You must guard this state carefully. The moment you leave this place and allow negative words or doubt-filled thoughts to take over, you begin to weaken what you have just built. This is why it is important to stay aware, to stay intentional, to keep your focus aligned with what you have already declared. When thoughts come that try to contradict your faith, you don't entertain them, you replace them. You respond with the same truth you spoke before. You keep your words consistent, your mindset steady, and your expectation firm. This is not passive waiting. This is active trust. It is a posture where you are fully convinced that God is faithful, that He does not ignore faith, and that He is always working even when you cannot see it. As you remain in this place, you are allowing what has been released through your words to continue developing, to continue unfolding, to continue manifesting in the right time and in the right way.